When I first read those words on the invitation, I thought I was imagining things. Adults only, 18 plus. That was all it said. No names, no side note, no exception. My sister's wedding was in 3 weeks, and somehow, the only person not welcome was my daughter. My adopted daughter, Lily. She's 17, smart, kind, the kind of girl who thanks waiters twice and remembers her teachers' birthdays. But apparently, she was too young for family. Before I tell you what happened next, if you care about real stories that remind you what love and courage truly mean, take a second to subscribe. It helps more people hear stories like this one. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end, because what happened at Christmas turned everything upside down. When Lily asked if she should wear her hair up or down for the wedding, I smiled and told her she'd look beautiful either way. I didn't have the heart to tell her she wasn't invited yet. I hoped maybe my sister would call, that it was some kind of mistake. But days passed and nothing. And when the truth finally came out, it hit like a cold wave. My mother said, "It's nothing personal, it's just the venue's policy." But that was a lie, because my cousin's 17-year-old son had just posted his tuxedo fitting on Instagram. So no, it wasn't about age. It was about Lily. About her being adopted. About her not fitting into the family picture they wanted for the wedding album. When Lily found out, she didn't cry. She just went quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than shouting. Then she asked, "Is it because I'm not really family?" I told her no, of course not. But deep down, I knew that's exactly what it was. That night, I sat in the dark living room, the wedding invitations still on the counter. I kept rereading that small line, "Adults only," like it was proof that love had conditions in our family. I promised myself once that Lily would never feel unwanted again. And now, somehow, I was watching it happen right in front of me. So, when my sister texted, "Hope you can still come," I didn't argue. I just clicked not attending. No explanations. No drama. Just silence. Because sometimes silence says everything. But what happened after that was louder than anything I could have said. And what came next will make you question everything about family and loyalty. After I clicked not attending, my phone didn't stop buzzing for hours. First it was my sister, a string of messages that all started sweet but ended sharp. "It's not personal. We just want a consistent rule for everyone." Then my mom. She said I was overreacting, that I was punishing the family for one small misunderstanding. But it wasn't small. It never was. I stared at those messages and thought about all the years I had tried to make us fit. The family dinners, the birthdays, the awkward holidays where Lily would hand out gifts she'd wrapped herself, and no one even opened them while she was watching. I used to tell myself they were just distracted, that they didn't mean to make her feel invisible. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't about distraction. It was about denial. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and found Lily already dressed, sitting at the table with her sketchbook. She was drawing a girl in a white dress, standing outside a church. When I asked what it was, she said softly, "Someone who got left out." That sentence broke something in me, the quiet kind of heartbreak that doesn't come with tears, only the sound of your own breath catching. Later that day, my sister posted a story online, a photo of the bridesmaids, smiling, champagne in hand, captioned "Family Only." That was when I stopped wondering if it had been an accident. I didn't reply to any of their messages. I didn't explain myself. Because how do you explain something that should never need an explanation? A mother standing by her child shouldn't require a defense. Still, I kept checking my phone for one message that never came, an apology, a question, anything. But there was only silence, followed by more group chat guilt. You always have to make things about you. Don't ruin Lydia's big day. It's just one rule. Why can't you let it go? And that's when it hit me. They weren't angry because I said no. They were angry because my silence made them face what they'd done. That night, while Lily slept, I opened my laptop and canceled our hotel reservation. The confirmation email popped up. Your booking has been canceled. It felt final, like cutting the last thread holding me to a version of family that only loved on their terms. But I had no idea what that decision was about to set in motion. Because what happened next turned one quiet refusal into the loudest message I'd ever sent. And the fallout that followed made the wedding look small compared to what came after. The wedding week was getting closer, and my silence was apparently louder than anything I could have said. That's when the guilt started. Not the kind that makes you question yourself, but the kind people use when they want you to give in. The first message came from my younger sister, Claire. She wrote, "Lydia is really hurt. You could have handled this better. You always make things dramatic." Then another one from my mom, "Don't do this to the family, please. It's one day." It was never one day. It had been years of small cuts disguised as jokes, of being the one who had to keep peace, even when that peace cost me my daughter's smile. I used to answer those texts right away, trying to explain, trying to make them understand. But this time, I just stared at the screen until the messages stopped lighting up. The next morning, I found Lily sitting at the kitchen table, her plate untouched. She asked if she could stay home from school. I asked why, and she said, "I don't feel like talking to anyone who has a real family today." That sentence stayed with me all day. She didn't mean to hurt me with it. She was just telling the truth the way kids sometimes do, too pure to dress it up. When I got home that night, there were 5 missed calls from my mom and 1 voicemail from my dad. His voice was tired, like he'd been practicing what to say. "We know you love her, but this isn't the way. Family is about forgiveness." Forgiveness. The word tasted bitter. I'd forgiven them 100 times before they ever asked for it. But forgiveness without change is just permission to keep getting hurt. At dinner, Lily barely spoke. She just pushed her food around the plate, then excused herself. I sat there, staring at the empty chair across from me, realizing that the very people who were supposed to protect her had taught her what rejection felt like. That night, I opened the family group chat. Pictures of flowers, cakes, wedding decorations, excitement. I could almost feel them pretending everything was fine, as if my absence didn't matter. But deep down, I knew it did. Because when you stop playing a role, the whole script falls apart. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I muted the chat. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt safe. Still, I had no idea that silence was about to speak for me, louder than any confrontation could. Because what happened next made my quiet decision impossible for anyone to ignore. The thing about family rejection is that it never starts loud. It starts quietly, with moments so small you almost convince yourself they don't matter. A look, a comment, a pause too long. I used to tell myself I was imagining it. I wanted to believe my family loved Lily, just like any other child. But when I look back, the signs were everywhere. I remember her first Christmas with us. She was 4, shy and careful, like someone still learning what it meant to belong. She made a little card for my mom with stickers and crooked hearts. My mom smiled, said thank you, and set it on the side table. Later that night, I saw her throw it away with the wrapping paper. Lily didn't notice, but I did. And I said nothing, because that's what I'd been taught, that peace meant silence. Then there was the time Lily won an art contest at school. The prize was small, a ribbon and a certificate, but she was so proud. We showed the photo to everyone at a family barbecue. My sister barely looked up from her phone. My mom said, "That's nice, but don't you think she should focus on something more practical?" Lily just nodded and went back to drawing. She never entered another contest after that. There were birthdays they forgot, Photos where they cropped her out, gifts addressed to Lily, Emily's daughter, as if they had to remind themselves she wasn't really one of us. I told myself it was unintentional, that maybe they just didn't know how to handle adoption. But love doesn't need instructions. It either shows up or it doesn't. Still, I kept trying. I made excuses for them, planned family dinners, showed up to every event hoping this would be the one where things felt normal. Lily noticed more than she said. She always has. She has this way of going quiet when something hurts her, not because she doesn't care, but because she's already learned that speaking up changes nothing. Sometimes I wonder when exactly she stopped expecting them to love her. Maybe it was the day she asked why her cousins got matching pajamas from Grandma, and hers came in a gift bag labeled extra. Or maybe it was the day she realized no one ever said, "I love you," back when she said it first. By the time the wedding invitation came, it wasn't a surprise. It was just confirmation. A final reminder that no matter how much I tried, some people will always measure love in blood instead of heart. But even then, I didn't know that my silence would be the thing that finally forced them to see what they'd done. Because when the wedding day came, what happened next shocked every single one of them. The morning of the wedding came quietly. The world outside my window looked ordinary. Blue sky, sunlight spilling across the floor, but everything inside me felt different. I made pancakes for Lily. She was still wearing her pajamas, hair messy, eyes tired. I told her we were having a movie day, and she smiled like she almost believed me. My phone buzzed again and again. Photos from the wedding prep, laughing faces, dresses hanging in perfect lines, the kind of perfection that hides everything imperfect underneath. I didn't open them. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for saying no. Instead, I looked at Lily and realized something I should have seen years ago. I'd been teaching her that love meant staying quiet to be accepted. But real love doesn't need permission. It shows up, even when no one claps for it. So, we stayed home. We watched old movies, ate too much chocolate, and built a fort out of blankets like we used to when she was little. Somewhere between the second movie and the smell of popcorn burning, I felt peace for the first time in months. Not because everything was okay, it wasn't, but because I finally stopped begging people to see us. Later that night, I checked social media. There was a photo of my sister walking down the aisle. My parents behind her. The caption said, "Family is everything." I didn't cry. I just closed the app and whispered to myself, "Not everything." That silence, that absence, spoke louder than any argument ever could. For the first time, my choices were mine. But what I didn't know was that my silence had started something I couldn't control. The family group chat would explode within hours, and the people who thought they could shame me into submission were about to learn what conviction looks like. Because when they realized I didn't show up, the backlash came harder than I ever imagined. It didn't take long for them to notice. The ceremony hadn't even finished when my phone started vibrating on the counter, one message after another lighting up the screen. At first, it was polite confusion. "Hey, are you on your way?" Then, sharper tones. "You're embarrassing the family." I didn't answer. I was on the couch with Lily, her head resting on my shoulder as she laughed at something on TV. It was the sound of peace, and for a moment, I let myself forget that peace always comes with a price. By the time evening came, the texts turned to paragraphs. My mom said I had humiliated Lydia. My uncle added that everyone was asking where I was. Someone even wrote that my absence had ruined the photos. It was strange how people can grieve a missing seat more than a missing bond. Then came the call. My mother's voice was trembling, not with sadness, but with the kind of anger that hides behind guilt. She said, "You're tearing this family apart."
I didn't yell.
I just said quietly, "No, Mom." I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. There was silence on the line, then a sigh, the kind of sigh people give when they realize you won't play your role anymore. She hung up. I walked into Lily's room that night and found her asleep, sketchbook open beside her. On the page, she had drawn two hands, one larger, holding the smaller one tight. Underneath, she had written, "Real family doesn't let go." I stood there for a long time, staring at it. Everything the world tries to teach you about forgiveness and family suddenly felt too small. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't about letting people keep hurting you. It's about letting go of the need for them to understand why they did. By morning, someone had posted a photo from the wedding reception. Everyone smiling, champagne glasses raised, and in the caption, "The whole family together." It didn't sting this time. I'd finally accepted what was true. We were no longer part of that picture, and maybe we never had been. But what came next wasn't silence. It was something I hadn't expected at all, something that would turn my quiet stand into a conversation that none of them could ignore. Because when Christmas came, everything I thought was settled would be put to the test again. December crept in quietly that year. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. Normally, by the first week of the month, I'd be the one organizing who brought what for Christmas dinner, wrapping gifts late at night, making sure everyone felt included, even the people who never included us. But this time, the calendar felt empty on purpose. I hadn't sent a single message. I could feel the family waiting for me to cave, to send the usual group text, to prove I still cared enough to fix what they broke. But I didn't. Instead, I spent that energy on Lily. We went shopping for lights, baked cookies, and covered the house in silver and gold. The smell of cinnamon filled every corner. There was laughter, music, warmth. Everything Christmas was supposed to be, just smaller, quieter, and infinitely more honest. On Christmas Eve, my phone started lighting up again. "Are we still coming over? What time should we bring dessert?" I didn't reply. For the first time in my life, I didn't owe anyone an answer. Silence was my new boundary, and I was learning how to live inside it. That night, it snowed. Lily and I sat by the window, mugs of hot chocolate in hand. She looked at the lights outside and whispered, "This feels like family." And she was right. There was no performance, no pressure, no pretending. Just love, showing up quietly but completely. Still, I could tell my family was unraveling in the background. My mother left a voicemail saying she didn't understand why I was doing this. My sister posted photos of their perfect Christmas dinner, captioned "Family First." It used to sting, but now it just looked hollow, like a picture taken in bad lighting. I realized something that night. Peace doesn't come when everyone approves of your choices. It comes when you stop needing them to. Before bed, I watched Lily hang one last ornament, a small, heart-shaped one that read "Home." She looked at me and smiled. And in that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. But I also knew peace never lasts without a test. And I was right. Because just when I thought the storm had passed, an unexpected visit from someone in the family was about to reopen every wound I thought had healed. And what happened at that doorstep the next morning would change everything. It started the day after Christmas. The snow outside hadn't even melted yet when the first knock came. When I opened the door, my parents were standing there, bundled in coats, holding a tray of leftover desserts like peace offerings wrapped in guilt. They smiled the kind of smile that comes before a storm. My mom said she just wanted to talk. My dad added that it's time to move on. But the moment they stepped inside, it didn't feel like a visit. It felt like an ambush dressed as concern. They sat at the table, looking around the house like strangers seeing it for the first time. My mom glanced at the small tree in the corner, the one Lily had decorated, and sighed. Then came the words I'd been waiting for, though I hoped I never would. You're teaching her to cut people out, Emily. That's not love. For a second, I didn't answer. Because how do you explain to someone that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's survival? I told her quietly that I wasn't teaching Lily to cut anyone out. I was teaching her not to chase people who make her feel like she's never enough. My dad shook his head, said family means forgiveness, said blood is unbreakable. But love isn't blood. And forgiveness isn't supposed to be a one-way street. I noticed my mom's eyes drift to the photo on the wall. Lily and I at the beach last summer, wind in our hair, smiling like freedom. She looked at it and said, "You'll regret this when she grows up and leaves you." That one hit hard. Not because I believed it, but because I could see she meant it. I stood up and told them it was time to go. My voice didn't shake this time. They left quietly, but not before my mom turned back at the door and said, "You've changed." She was right. I had. After they left, Lily came out from her room, holding the small heart ornament from the tree. She asked if everything was okay. I smiled and told her yes, because in that moment it finally was. The accusations didn't stop after that. More messages came, more whispers through relatives, stories rewritten to make me the villain. But by then, I'd already learned that when you stop needing validation, people will call it rebellion. Still, I didn't realize that one message, one simple text that arrived a few days later, would shift everything again. It wasn't from my mom or sister. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in years. And what that message said changed how I saw everything that happened before. The text came late at night, long after the house had gone quiet. The sender's name lit up the screen, and for a second, I thought it was a mistake. It was Lydia, my sister. The same sister whose wedding had started all of this. The message was short. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it. But something in the tone felt different. Not defensive, not demanding, just tired. So I said yes. The next day, she showed up. No flowers, no gifts. Just standing on my porch with eyes that looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It was strange. The same silence that once felt like punishment now felt like truth. She finally said, "Mom told me what happened. I didn't know it was that bad." Then she admitted she'd heard what people were saying, that I'd overreacted, that I'd isolated myself, that I was teaching Lily resentment. But for the first time, she wasn't defending them. She was questioning them. We sat down, and she started crying. Not the kind of crying that asks for sympathy, but the kind that happens when denial runs out. She said she hadn't realized how cruel it was to exclude Lily, how much she'd followed what everyone else wanted because she didn't want to upset Mom. I listened quietly. Years of resentment tangled with love, fighting for space inside me. When I finally spoke, my voice came out softer than I expected. I told her this was never about one wedding. It was about all the little moments that led there, the times Lily had been treated like a guest in a family she'd already given her heart to. Lydia nodded, wiping her eyes. She said she couldn't change what happened, but she wanted to try to make it right. She asked if she could talk to Lily. I hesitated, not because I wanted to protect Lily from her, but because I didn't want her to think forgiveness was automatic. It had to mean something this time. When Lily came into the room, she looked unsure, almost afraid. Lydia got down to her level and said, "I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry." And for a moment, it felt like the air itself softened. Lily didn't say anything. She just nodded, quietly, and left the room. After Lydia left, I stood by the window, watching her car disappear down the street. I didn't feel angry anymore, just lighter. Maybe closure isn't about fixing what's broken, but about deciding what still deserves your energy. Still, something told me this wasn't the end, not yet. Because the next chapter of our story wasn't going to be about what they took from us, but about what we were finally ready to build. And when that new beginning came, it was more powerful than any revenge could ever be. Weeks passed after Lydia's visit. The noise finally quieted. The calls, the messages, even the whispers. It felt like the storm had burned itself out. For the first time in a long time, life felt steady, peaceful. Lily was getting ready to leave for college visits. Watching her pack notebooks and sketchbooks into her bag felt surreal. I remembered the girl who used to hide behind me at family dinners, and now here she was, confident, grounded, free in a way I never was at her age. One night, while we were cleaning up after dinner, she asked me, "Do you think they'll ever like me?" I paused. There were 100 ways to answer that, but only one was honest. I told her maybe someday they'd understand what they lost, but we didn't need them to. Because belonging isn't something you earn, it's something you're given without conditions. She smiled, nodded, and went back to packing. And just like that, I realized she'd already learned everything I'd been trying to teach her. Later that evening, I sat alone in the living room, looking at the family photo wall. Some faces no longer felt like home, but one did, hers. I took down the picture of my parents' house and replaced it with a photo of me and Lily on the beach. The one my mom once said wasn't family material. Now it hung right in the center. That small act felt like closing a chapter. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for apologies or explanations. I'd stopped chasing a version of family that didn't include us, and in the process, I'd found the one that did. Right here, in the quiet of our little home. People always say you can't choose your family, but they're wrong. You can choose the people who stay, the ones who love you without asking you to shrink. I chose Lily. Every day, I'll keep choosing her. And maybe that's the real lesson in all of this, that sometimes walking away isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of it. Because in the end, the loudest statement I ever made was made in silence.